Hello, and welcome to the Science for Sleepy, a place where we leave behind the noise of the day, the push and pull of tasks and timetables, and drift into the gentle, wondering hush of night thoughts. Here, science doesn't shout. It hums. It glows faintly in the dark like stars behind clouds. Tonight we're wondering, is there weather in space? The air around you may be still, your windows closed, your room silent. But somewhere far beyond even the blue of the sky and the height of clouds, there are movements. Not air, not water, not clouds, but winds. Not like ours, but just as real. Winds made not of air, but of particles. Winds that race faster than sound and never make a sound at all. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel if you find peace in these sleepy stargazing journeys. Like the video to let us know you're here, and in the comments, gently type your location and your local time. We love knowing who is drifting off across this little world. Now close your eyes if you haven't already, and breathe slowly. We begin just beyond Earth, just beyond the place where our sky ends. Here, in the cold hush of space, we meet a wind that has never touched ground. It comes not from our planet, but from our star. A wind that moves outward from the sun in every direction. It is constant, and it is strange. It has no scent, no colour, no touch that your skin would feel. And yet, it is real. This is solar wind. We float gently in its path now. It does not rush past like a breeze on Earth. It is diffuse, patient, soft, but it moves fast, hundreds of kilometers per second. It carries with it charged particles, little bits of the sun's breath, flung out across the solar system like pollen. And just like pollen, it can cling, it can build up, it can shape what it touches. This wind carries energy, it carries change. It reaches us, here on Earth, and touches our magnetic field. Our planet responds, our satellites stir, our skies light up. But not because of thunder or clouds. This weather is older, colder. It doesn't form in the sky, it forms in the void. We watch now as these invisible winds move past us. The particles spiral gently, following magnetic lines like unseen rivers in space. Sometimes they arrive softly, sometimes they roar, and when the sun stirs, these winds grow wild, but we'll get there. For now, just rest in this idea, that even in the deep vacuum of space, where there is no air, there are winds, not winds that rustle leaves, winds that shape worlds, winds that carry the quiet breath of a star. We remain adrift, still following the slow tide of solar wind. But now we turn our attention back toward its source, the sun itself. Not the friendly disk we glimpse at dawn or feel warming our face. No, we look closer, closer than our skin could ever bear, closer than any cloud could float. We move past the brilliant corona, the sun's outermost atmosphere, which shimmers not in soft curves, but in sudden, jagged arcs of light. From here, the sun no longer looks round. It looks restless. It is not calm. The sun's surface, that golden mask we see from afar, is a constantly shifting tapestry. Magnetic fields twist beneath it, invisible threads pulling, coiling, tangling. These loops grow tight, tighter, until suddenly, snap, they release, exploding with energy. This is space's lightning, a flare, a solar storm. It doesn't flash white or rumble with thunder, it radiates, it blasts out X-rays and ultraviolet light. Sometimes it hurls matter, vast clouds of plasma, across the solar system. These are coronal mass ejections, or CMES. Not every storm on the sun leads to one, but when it does, the space weather changes dramatically. We float now above one such event. A huge loop of magnetic field twists like a ribbon pulled tight between unseen hands. It trembles, glows, and then, releases. We feel no sound, only motion. The explosion releases billions of tons of charged particles. They rush out, expanding like the slow bloom of a flower, but this bloom races outward at unimaginable speed. This isn't weather we can feel with skin, it's weather we measure with silence. It can take a few hours to a few days for these storms to reach us. But when they do, they can rattle the edges of our magnetic field, shake satellite signals, dance across the upper atmosphere. Yet even here, floating far from Earth, we are not afraid. We are watching, not exposed. We are with the sun, not beneath it. We are curious, not endangered. The surface of the sun continues to churn. Its magnetic fields bend and weave, guided by the motion deep within. Convection, the slow rise and fall of plasma, carries energy upward, and the fields respond. They knot, they slip, they break. This is the sun's secret. Its storms are not random. They are the slow result of constant motion. Beneath the bright surface lies a deeper rhythm. Every 11 years or so, the sun's magnetic field flips. North becomes south. Storms come and go in cycles like breaths. These aren't just distant eruptions. They are signs, weather, clues about the sun's inner life, and like all weather, they shape the space around them. As we float farther from the sun, we carry this knowledge, that even in the seeming stillness of space, storms can rise. They do not form from clouds, but from fields. They do not roar, but they radiate. They do not rain, but they change the colour of the sky. Soon we will see that colour ourselves, but not yet. For now we drift on, away from the sun, but still touched by its moods. We drift now through a soft corridor of space between sun and earth, the particles of solar wind brushing silently past us, like the faintest current in a sea without water. Ahead, our blue planet turns slowly, its poles glowing faintly, like secrets whispered in light. Something is happening at the edge of the world. The solar wind that leaves the sun, streaming outward in its endless tide, eventually meets a barrier, not a wall, not a dome, but a magnetic field, Earth's quiet shield, invisible and ancient, coiled around the planet like a sleeping dragon's breath. We drift closer. The wind touches the field and bends. Particles are caught, pulled along curved magnetic lines. Some are deflected entirely. Others spiral down toward the poles, funneled along invisible paths like dancers following lighted threads. And then they meet the sky. We float above the northern pole now, and below us the sky begins to shimmer. Curtains of green light ripple like wind-stirred silk, then violet, then crimson. The colours flicker, stretch, and pulse in silent waves. This is an aurora, the ghost of space weather, made visible on Earth. Here, the atmosphere itself glows in greeting. The solar particles strike oxygen and nitrogen high in the atmosphere, exciting them, making them shimmer, like tiny bells rung softly by cosmic fingers. The higher the collision, the more ethereal the colour. Green comes from lower heights, red from higher, blue and purple from rarer touches. We're not watching a storm in the usual sense. No clouds gather, no raindrops fall. But it is weather all the same. The atmosphere responds to space's energy, reshaping its own colour and rhythm. Auroras don't just appear in the north. Their southern siblings dance too, Aurora australis, echoing in the polar dark. Sometimes they flicker gently, sometimes they blaze in sheets so vast they span the horizon. Sailors once thought they were omens, Arctic explorers called them skyfire, but now we know them for what they are, the brush of space upon sky. Even the quietest night can carry a memory of the sun's breath. If the sun flares, the auroras respond. If a coronal mass ejection arrives, The lights grow fierce, racing across the sky like waves of colour. Satellites may tremble in orbit, magnetic fields may twist, power grids on Earth may feel a subtle tug, a reminder that we live not in isolation, but under the influence of our star. And yet, despite its power, it is beautiful. Here, in this moment, there is only awe. We hover above a sleeping world, wrapped in the silent pageant of light, where the boundaries between sky and space, science and story, melt away. Close your eyes again. Imagine a wind you cannot feel, shaping a sky you cannot hear. Imagine the stars watching their own reflections in the colours below. Imagine that, even here, even now, the world is listening to space. The lights fade behind us now, soft and slow, as we float outward, away from Earth and deeper into the space that touches all things. Ahead, the blackness stretches, but it is not empty. Not really. Space has weather, and its most violent tempests begin not with clouds, but with eruptions. Eruptions from the sun that are bigger than whole worlds. These are called coronal mass ejections, CMES. We saw their birth back near the sun. Now we watch one on its journey. Out here, the CME travels like a shockwave through space, not with sound, but with force. A roiling magnetic bubble of plasma flung from the sun's corona. It expands as it moves, growing vast and silent. Within it are charged particles, protons, electrons, moving together as a single breath of fury. From far away, the wavefront looks like a faint distortion, a ripple through the fabric of space. But when it nears a planet, the stillness breaks. We watch now as this wave reaches a world, Earth, again. The CME presses against the planet's magnetic field, not like a breeze, but like a tide. The field trembles, it bends. For a moment it compresses, like a soft shell under pressure. Some of the energy deflects, some is absorbed, and some, like a cunning whisper, slips in through the poles. This is space's thunderclap, but there is no sound. Below, instruments on satellites ping. Radiation levels spike. GPS drifts slightly off course. Somewhere, an astronaut checks a monitor and notes the change, not with fear, but with wonder. They're drifting through the weather of the cosmos. The Auroras return, more brilliant this time, but deeper down, even Earth's surface feels the CME's touch. Power grids strain, radio signals flicker, the planet stirs, reminded again that it is not separate from the sun but tethered to it, like a flower to the warmth that feeds it. Still, it passes. All weather passes. The CME moves on, its energy spent, its reach fading into the outer solar system. But the memory remains, in data, in lights, in the magnetic fields left humming with resonance. Space does not forget, and we, still drifting quietly, move alongside the remnants of the storm. The charged particles thin, the field smooths. Earth turns calmly once more, wrapped in its blue veil. But the sun is still awake, always shifting, always spinning. Somewhere, another storm is forming. You may wonder, can a place without air truly have a storm? But weather, we've come to learn, is not about clouds or rain. It's about movement, energy, pressure, imbalance. And the universe is full of such things. Space is not a void, it is a theatre. And the storms, though silent, are vast beyond measure. Now let yourself float farther, into the spaces between storms, into the calm that follows. Inhale slowly, exhale slower. The worst of the weather has passed, for now. We drift now beside a quiet shape, not solid, not visible, but profoundly real. It surrounds the earth like an unseen shield, bending with grace, humming with power. It is Earth's magnetic field, and it is not alone. All across the solar system, planets wear cloaks like this, invisible veils woven of magnetism shielding them from the sun's wild breath. These are the guardians of atmospheres, the sculptors of space weather's touch. We float toward Mercury first, small, rocky, and surprisingly fierce. Its magnetic field is weak, patchy, but still present. The solar wind buffets it closely, only barely deflected. The storms here are intimate. There's little space to escape. The surface, unprotected by atmosphere, records each impact like a diary written in radiation. Farther out, we pass Earth again, its magnetic field arcing into space like the wings of a vast bird. It deflects the solar wind to the side, forming a teardrop-shaped bubble, the magnetosphere. On the sun-facing side, it flattens. On the night side, it stretches long, forming a magnetic tail that flows like hair in cosmic wind. Inside, we are shielded. Outside, the storm continues. We drift to Jupiter now, the giant. Here, the magnetic field is not a shield, it is a domain. Jupiter's magnetosphere is immense, more than 1,000 times stronger than Earth's. It extends millions of kilometers into space, so large that if we could see it, it would be bigger than the sun in the sky. This field captures particles, accelerates them, traps them in belts that shimmer with radiation. It is not just protection, it is a weather system unto itself, churning with invisible storms, electric fields and radiation tides. To enter it is to feel the presence of a planet not just in mass, but in magnetism. Saturn greets us next, elegant and strange. Its magnetic field is smooth, strangely aligned with its axis, a near-perfect symmetry. Yet even here, solar wind collides and compresses, generating electric currents in the space around it. The rings respond subtly, dust motes shifting, charged particles dancing. Mars awaits us farther still, but we'll linger there later. For now, we notice a pattern. Planets with strong magnetic fields tend to have retained their atmospheres. They are wrapped not just in gases, but in guardians. Planets without them, like Venus, like Mars, are more exposed, more weathered by space. Even planets with no atmosphere at all can have weather, if they have a field. Energy trapped, particles channeled, radiation directed. These fields are not static. They ripple, they respond. They can even reverse, flipping poles over time, a magnetic breath that takes millennia. We float among them now, these invisible cocoons pulsing gently in the dark. You cannot see them, you cannot touch them, but they shape what lives, what survives, and what drifts away. The magnetic fields are like whispers, soft, constant, unseen, that say to the solar wind, not here, not today. They do not end the storm, but they shape its path. And in that shaping, space has weather. Now breathe in again, deeper this time, and exhale slowly. We are drifting onward, toward a world that lost its field and the winds that never stopped. We turn toward Venus now, a world wrapped in cloud, golden and bright from afar, but underneath, silent and burning. As we approach, the glow thickens. The clouds reflect sunlight with a pearl-like sheen, but inside them, the heat grows unbearable. The atmosphere is heavy, pressing, choking. And yet, there is no magnetic field. Venus, for all her mystery, is unshielded. She stands bare before the solar wind. We hover just above her clouds now, where the upper atmosphere meets the oncoming breath of the sun. There is no protection here, no magnetosphere to bend the storm. Instead, solar wind flows directly against the planet's outer skin. The interaction is strange. Where Earth deflects, Venus absorbs. The wind strikes her atmosphere, peels particles from it. Hydrogen, oxygen, They lift slowly, gently, into space. Not in dramatic gusts, but in a kind of slow exhale, a planetary sigh that never stops. Here, weather happens not in clouds or storms, but in escape. The air itself is leaving. We float down through the dense atmosphere. It is quiet, but not still. Winds whip around the planet faster than the surface rotates. The atmosphere super-rotates, dragging clouds in a perpetual planet-wide storm. These aren't caused by the sun, but they are shaped by its touch. Without a magnetic field, Venus is vulnerable to space. Radiation penetrates easily. Charged particles enter the upper atmosphere and trigger chemical changes. Molecules rearrange, layers shift. Over centuries and millennia, this soft abrasion becomes loss. Her skies, filled with sulfur and carbon dioxide, grow heavier. The ground remains dry, scorched, crushed beneath the pressure of an atmosphere 90 times denser than Earth's. We drift just above the surface. Here, the air is thick as liquid, but space is still near. Look up, and the sky is not blue. It is a dim copper haze. The sun, barely visible through the clouds, casts no warmth, only glare. Venus is a world in tension. Inside, slow volcanoes may still breathe. Above, the atmosphere churns endlessly, and all around, the solar wind erodes. This is what weather in space can do. Not all at once, but over time. Without a magnetic shield, even a planet wrapped in clouds is unprotected. Venus teaches us something gentle and sobering, that being wrapped in atmosphere isn't enough. Without a field to guard it, even the thickest sky can slowly vanish. We rise again, back into the upper layers, where the solar wind continues to kiss the planet's edge. There is no violence, only time, only weather, written in loss. And now we turn from this ghost of a greenhouse toward another planet that once had a sky, and now barely remembers it. Mars awaits. But first, one long breath. Inhale, hold, exhale. We drift on. We drift now toward a quieter world, a world once wet, once blue, but now dusted in rust. Mars rises before us smaller than Earth, its surface scarred and silent. But in the silence, there is memory. The kind of memory that only a planet stripped bare could carry. Mars once had a magnetic field. Long ago, billions of years in the past, its core churned with molten motion, generating the same kind of protective cloak that Earth still wears. But that motion slowed, the field faded, and space remembered. Now, as we float above the Martian surface, we see the evidence not in clouds, but in the absence of clouds, in the thinness of the air, in the coldness of the wind. The atmosphere is barely there, just 1% of Earth's. The planet breathes faintly like a candle in the vacuum. But the solar wind has not forgotten Mars. It still arrives, every moment, brushing across the upper atmosphere. Without a global magnetic field to deflect it, the wind interacts directly, stripping particles away, molecule by molecule. The process is slow, but on the scale of planets, slow becomes profound. We watch now as atomic oxygen lifts away from the atmosphere, pulled upward by energy from the sun. Not all of it escapes, but some does. It drifts off, never to return, and with every solar storm, with every coronal breath, more is lost. The Martian atmosphere is being unspooled, and yet this world is not without rhythm. There are still whispers of weather. Dust devils spiral across the plains. Winds race down from frozen poles. Entire storms rise, soft and ochre-coloured, covering half the planet in a suspended veil of sand. We drift through one now, not as travellers, but as listeners. The dust doesn't bite, it floats. It hangs in suspension, slow and swirling, turning sunlight into amber dusk. These are not rainstorms, not thunderstorms. They are silent storms. Sometimes the dust storms grow large enough to cover the entire planet. They dim the sun. They halt solar-powered machines. They erase shadows. And beneath that shroud, Mars rests, still losing sky to space. Somewhere far above the solar wind watches, still present, still patient. We rise from the surface, higher, past the dusty veil, past the shivering wisps of atmosphere. There, we find small pockets of magnetism still anchored in the crust, relics of the past, localized fields that hold tiny shields, small regions where space weather is deflected just barely, like scars remembering the shape of old armor. Mars tells us this, that magnetic fields are not just scientific curiosities, they are stories, shields, sculptors of fate. They decide whether a sky stays or slips away. We drift onward now into deeper space, past the inner planets, past the thin dust trails. We turn our gaze outward and upward into a place where weather comes not from suns but from stars. But before we go, take another breath. Let the silence of Mars linger in your lungs. Let the idea of a world that lost its sky drift behind your eyes. And now, exhale. We follow the particles. Out beyond the orbit of Mars, we drift into a quieter sea, the space between planets. But even here, in the apparent stillness, there are travelers. Fast, invisible, ancient. They come not from our sun, but from stars far away. Explosions and births, deaths and collisions, all sending tiny messengers through the dark. These are cosmic rays. They are not rays at all, but particles, high-energy protons and atomic nuclei, stripped of their electrons, moving near the speed of light. They pass through galaxies, through solar systems, sometimes through planets, sometimes through us. They are the weather of stars long gone. We float beside one now, not to catch it. You cannot catch what moves at near light speed, but to acknowledge it, to notice it, to feel without feeling the way it alters space. Cosmic rays can come from supernovae, the colossal deaths of massive stars. When such a star collapses and explodes, it sends out a shockwave so vast it stirs the fabric of space, accelerating particles to incredible speeds. These particles continue outward forever, unless stopped. Sometimes they arrive here. Our sun responds to them. Earth's magnetic field too. During solar minimums, when the sun is quiet, more of these rays reach us, penetrating deeper into our skies, sometimes down to the surface. Spacecraft feel them. Astronauts record their faint touches, flashes of light behind their closed eyelids, caused by particles passing through the fluid of the eye. Even our DNA notices. Cosmic rays can damage cells, chip at molecules, make slow edits to life. But this is not danger. This is awareness. Cosmic rays remind us that space is not empty. It is threaded with energy, with motion, with the long reach of stellar memory. They are not frequent, not concentrated, but they are real, constant, drifting across eons like snowflakes no eye can see. We float on, surrounded by their quiet urgency. Some of these particles have been travelling for millions of years. Some began before Earth had oceans, before humans ever looked upward, and they continue, patient, persistent, moving across the magnetic boundaries of the solar system. Our own sun sends out solar rays too, though gentler, but sometimes, when it flares, it joins the chorus of spaceborne particles, adding its voice to the distant storm. The cosmic rays do not collide with each other. Space is vast. Their paths are solitary, yet their presence is everywhere. We are drifting not just through space, but through memory. We are swimming through the forgotten breath of stars, and though we cannot hear it, the cosmic weather hums around us, not in sound, but in pulse. Now breathe. Imagine a particle travelling 10 million years to kiss your skin, and then imagine it passing right through. This is weather too, not clouds, not wind, but the long, slow drizzle of the cosmos. We exhale, slowly, and continue, toward the deeper dark, where even the wind grows thin. Now we float where the wind begins to vanish, not because it ends, but because it stretches so thin, so wide, so slow, it becomes something softer than silence. This is not the deep dark of night. This is deeper, beyond planets, beyond warmth. We are drifting through interplanetary space. Here, weather is not gone, only changed. There are no clouds, no gales. But still, temperature varies. Still, radiation shifts. Still, fields ripple faintly, like long grass brushed by unseen waves. We pause beside a current, not water, not air, but energy. There are invisible gradients here, differences in radiation intensity, slight pressure from the sun's breath, subtle flows of charged particles from flares long past. It is weather without form. The temperatures in space are not easy to define. A single molecule can move fast, giving the illusion of heat. But with so few molecules, so few particles at all, there is no touch. The average energy may be high, but there is no body to feel it. And so, it is cold. Utterly, invisibly cold. We drift through this paradox, where energy exists but cannot warm, where storms roar invisibly, where motion happens in silence. The space between planets is not nothing. It is a medium, filled with plasma, dust, radiation, and the echoes of solar and stellar events. It is shaped by solar wind, though weaker now. This wind stretches into a tenuous stream, slower and more diffuse, but it still carries the sun's story outward. This is called the interplanetary medium. It flows around us like ghost tide. It carries the imprints of past flares, CMEs, even past solar cycles. Where it bends, fields ripple. Where it collides with comet tails or planetary wakes, it stirs like soft silk on water. And even now, this space can shift. Shocks from new solar events move through this medium, like ripples in a pond. They reach planets hours or days after a flare. The space between becomes not a void, but a conduit. Weather without weight. We pass through a region stirred by a long-past event. The magnetic field here is slightly stronger. A compression has formed, a faint boundary. The particles here are denser. We don't see it, but instruments would detect the change. And even here, tiny grains of dust, remnants of comets, bits of asteroids, float aimlessly. Some carry electric charge and spiral in wide arcs under the influence of solar magnetism. Even these grains are shaped by the faintest weather. We are learning now that space weather is not just events, but conditions. It is the slow drift of particles, the gentle ripple of energy, the soft variation of magnetic fields. It is the quiet climate of the in-between. Not every place needs a storm to change. Some places shift simply because time passes. We breathe slowly here, not because there is air, but because the rhythm of this region invites stillness. Exhale and look ahead. We are approaching the king of storms, the magnetic titan, Jupiter. Waits. Now we come upon the giant Jupiter, a planet so vast that its gravity reaches far, pulling moons, particles, even light itself into new orbits. But gravity is not its only strength. Jupiter breathes magnetism. We drift slowly into its domain. Here, the magnetic field is a storm unto itself, not wrapped tightly around the planet like Earth's, but extending outward, vast and coiled, like an invisible hurricane made of pure force. Jupiter's magnetosphere is the largest structure in the solar system, besides the sun itself. If it glowed, it would stretch wider than the moon's orbit around Earth, an enormous teardrop in the darkness, constantly reshaped by solar wind. We hover within it now, and the silence vibrates. Here, particles are trapped in radiation belts more intense than anything around Earth. They spiral, accelerate, collide. These aren't gusts, they're cyclones of electrons and protons wrapped in magnetic geometry. The field hums. If we could hear magnetic motion, it would roar. We float deeper toward the planet itself. Jupiter spins fast, one rotation every 10 hours, and that speed twists its magnetic field into tight, warped coils. The planet's own internal engine, a swirling metallic hydrogen core, generates this titanic magnetism. We're not watching weather on a planet. We're inside the weather of the planet itself. Jupiter's moons too feel this storm. Io, the volcanic moon, is constantly bombarded by charged particles. The result is an electric circuit stretching from the moon to the planet. We watch as invisible currents race along magnetic lines, forming auroras at Jupiter's poles, not soft and green like Earth's, but deep blue and violet, seething and strange. Here, auroras burn day and night, constant, fueled by more than sunlight, by planetary fury. Even Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, generates its own magnetic field. A moon with a magnetosphere inside a planet's magnetosphere, a magnetic echo inside a magnetic sea. Jupiter does not simply resist the solar wind, it reshapes it. The wind slows as it nears the giant. It presses against the front of the field, creating a bow shock, like water splitting around the front of a moving ship. On the far side, a long tail stretches for millions of kilometers, a wake of flowing magnetism. This is space weather at its most grand. We're inside it now, drifting softly, watching silently. There is no lightning here, yet there is electricity. No clouds, yet pressure shifts. No rain, yet particles flow in constant motion. This too is weather. A storm made of magnetism, a tide of charged dust and particle wind. A rhythm so slow and so massive that only a planet this large could contain it. We pass close to the Great Red Spot, not space weather but atmospheric. Still it reminds us, motion defines a world, and Jupiter's motion is constant, thunderous, silent. We rise again, leaving behind the glow of auroras and the buzz of radiation. One last breath before we float on to a quieter, colder place, where rings whisper and dust becomes dance. Saturn is near. We drift now into a realm of elegance, where a planet wears rings like a soft-spoken crown, and weather becomes whisper instead of roar. Saturn turns slowly before us, golden-hued, wrapped in mist, its rings wide and delicate. But tonight, we're not here for clouds or storms. We've come to listen to the weather in the rings. At first it seems impossible. The rings appear too quiet, too thin, made only of ice and dust stretching in graceful arcs. They circle Saturn in perfect silence. But silence does not mean stillness. We float close, within the rings now, drifting between icy fragments. Some are no bigger than grains of sand, others are the size of boulders. All orbit in harmony, but the harmony is not perfect. Tiny collisions occur constantly, gentle, rhythmic, soft, as if snowflakes were brushing against each other, again and again, never stopping. Each impact releases a whisper of energy, a flicker of motion, an exchange of charge. There is space weather here too. The solar wind touches the rings. Ultraviolet light from the sun strikes the icy particles, knocking electrons free, giving rise to tiny electric fields. The particles react, they repel, they attract, they drift. And in this dance, A kind of micro-weather forms. We pass through a dusty gap in the rings, a space carved by a moonlet, its gravity clearing a path. Around it, particles ripple like wake lines behind a boat. These ripples, waves made of matter, are part of the ring's atmosphere, if we dare call it that. There is plasma here too, faint, almost absent, but stirred by Saturn's magnetosphere. The planet's field flows through the rings, interacting with the charged dust, guiding its motion ever so slightly. Sometimes the rings flicker with invisible auroras, not in the sky, but in the charged environment just above the icy arcs. Saturn itself hums with radio waves, not the kind you hear with ears, but waves detectable by spacecraft. They rise and fall with the solar wind, growing louder when storms from the sun arrive. The magnetosphere compresses, the charged particles shift, the whole region sings in silence. We drift higher now, leaving the rings beneath us like a frozen river of light. Saturn's poles shine softly with auroras, shaped by the planet's strange magnetic field, which, unlike Jupiter's, is almost perfectly aligned with its axis. This symmetry is rare, unnatural even. It means the auroras never drift. They stay fixed, constant. But what moves, instead, is the magnetosphere itself. It breathes in rhythm with the solar wind, expanding and shrinking as the sun changes. Saturn listens and responds, with fields, with flickers, with a storm of silence. Even the moons feel it. Enceladus, tiny and bright, shoots jets of water vapour into space from cracks in its icy surface. Some of that vapour becomes part of the magnetosphere, ionized and swept into Saturn's field like stardust into a tide. We are watching weather born of frost and fire, magnetism and motion. It has no cloud, no wind, no storm front, and yet it moves, it shapes, it lives. We drift now beyond the last pale edge of the rings. The silence deepens, and ahead something colder still awaits. A body made of rock and ice, a traveller of extremes, a comet. Now we follow something ancient and slow. A comet, small and forgotten, but glimmering faintly in the sun's distant reach. It moves with steady purpose, not like a planet, not like a star, but like a messenger. An icy traveller returning from the edge of the solar system. We drift beside it, through its silence. At first it is only rock and ice, a dark, uneven mass, no bigger than a mountain. There is no light here, no motion. But as the comet arcs closer to the sun, something changes. The warmth begins to touch its surface. Not heat as we know it. This is still colder than any day on Earth, but enough to wake the ice. It begins to sublimate, to turn directly from solid into gas. Not steam, not smoke, but a soft breath from stone. We watch as jets of vapour and dust erupt from cracks and pores, gentle as sleep, ancient as moonlight. The comet grows a coma, a pale halo around its body made of gas and dust. And then the solar wind arrives. This is where space weather becomes art. The wind, invisible and constant, presses against the coma. It shapes it, pushes it, and from that gentle pressure, a tail is born. Two tails, in fact. One made of dust, broad, golden, curved like a painter's stroke, and one made of ions, blue, narrow, sharp, pointing directly away from the sun. We float within that tail now. The dust dances around us, moving like fog in slow motion. Each particle reflects sunlight, turning the emptiness into shimmer. The ion tail pulses faintly, charged and reactive, sculpted by magnetic fields carried in the solar wind, and the comet does not slow. It continues toward the sun, shedding more with every mile. The solar wind sculpts and scours. space weather strips away ancient layers, revealing material unchanged since the beginning of the solar system. We're watching history evaporate, gently, beautifully. Sometimes comets fragment under pressure. One piece becomes many. Their tails twist, cross, dissolve. Other times they survive the journey, rounding the sun in a flash of brilliance, then returning to the outer dark for another 1,000 years of sleep. This is space weather at its most poetic, the sun's breath shaping a body made of memory. And even here, in this drifting debris, the weather does not end. The magnetic fields in the solar wind twist and reconnect near the comet, forming bow shocks and boundaries. The plasma around the tail stirs, forming ripples and waves, not in water, but in ions, invisible, electric, alive. We rise slowly, leaving the tail behind. The comet continues. It will outlive us, outlast our questions, and return long after we're gone. But we've seen its moment of motion, its surrender to the breath of the sun. We drift onward now, toward a border, not of rock, not of light, but of influence. The edge of the heliosphere awaits. Beyond that, the first winds of other stars. We leave the comet behind, its twin tails fading slowly into the vastness, and turn our gaze to something more immense. Not a planet, not a storm, but a boundary. The edge of the sun's reach. This is the heliosphere, a great bubble of solar wind, a cocoon of charged particles inflated by our star's breath. It stretches far, unimaginably far, encompassing every planet, every comet, every grain of dust that orbits the sun. And yet, it has a limit. We are drifting toward that limit now. The solar wind still moves here, but it has slowed. Far from the sun, it has cooled and thinned. No longer supersonic, it begins to compress. The particles bunch together, slowed by the pressure of the space beyond. This is the termination shock, the first veil. We feel it gently, not as impact, but as a change in rhythm. The wind shifts from speed to struggle, it hesitates, and then we pass through. Now we're in the heliosheath, a turbulent region where the slowed solar wind mixes with the faint breath of interstellar space. The two winds, one from our sun, one from distant stars, meet here, and the meeting is not silent. The heliosheath is a buffer zone, where charged particles spiral and collide, where magnetic fields twist and tangle. This is space weather at a crossroads, solar weather folding into galactic weather. There are no storms in the way we know them, no clouds, no lightning, but here magnetic reconnection events occur. Sudden realignments of field lines that snap and merge, releasing energy. The Voyager spacecraft passed through here once. It moved through this invisible frontier, listening, recording. It found the solar wind dying away and the wind of stars rising. Now we pass beyond it, the heliopause. This is the true edge, where the sun's breath no longer pushes back, where the pressure from outside equals the pressure from within. Beyond this, the sun is no longer the dominant force. We float in interstellar space, and here the weather feels older. The gas is thinner, the magnetic fields are slower, but they are not still. They bend, they flow. They carry the faint whispers of ancient supernovae, the murmured rhythms of passing stars. We drift near one such cloud now, a faint, interstellar wisp of gas and dust, stirred by gravity, by light, by the slow movement of the galaxy itself. Even here temperature varies. Even here particles move. Even here there is weather. It is slower than any wind you've known. It is softer than any breeze, but it shapes stars, it forms planets, it seeds worlds. We linger on the edge, feeling the sun behind us, faint now, like a memory of warmth. Ahead, the galaxy swirls, and we understand the solar system is not alone. It breathes within a larger sky, and space weather is not just from our sun, but from stars all around. Take a long, quiet breath. You have reached the border. You're beyond the weather of one star and entering the breath of many. Now we drift deeper, beyond the sun's shelter, beyond the reach of solar storms. We're no longer within a single system. We're between stars, interstellar space. It may seem like emptiness, but we know better now. Even here, the darkness is not silent. There are movements, there are flows, there is weather. Before us stretches a great cloud, vast, cold and thin. It is not made of air, but of hydrogen, helium, carbon dust. The atoms are sparse, perhaps only 1 per cubic centimetre, but across light years, even whispers grow mighty. This is an interstellar cloud. It drifts through the galaxy, stirred by gravity, shaped by the shock waves of ancient explosions. We pass through it slowly, gently, like a feather brushing through smoke. The temperature here is not like on Earth. Some regions of the cloud are warm, thousands of degrees, yet so empty they cannot heat a single touch. Others are cold, so cold that molecules cling together, forming icy grains drifting like ghosts. Even here, the weather moves. Magnetic fields thread through the cloud, slow and ancient. They twist, ripple, bend. Charged particles follow their lines like dancers tracing invisible paths. These fields are shaped by supernova remnants, by the rotation of the galaxy, by the passage of time. We drift near a denser region, a clump of gas, not yet a star but heavy with the potential of one. This is where stars are born. Within the densest parts of interstellar clouds, gravity begins to gather matter. The gas compresses, it warms, the fields tighten. This is not stormy weather. This is weather in deep time, weather that takes millions of years to unfold. We hover near a place like this, a stellar nursery still dark, but already the dust is warming, the cloud is collapsing. One day this will glow, one day it will flare. The seeds of future weather are forming here. As the gas collapses, it begins to spin. Accretion disks form, thin glowing rings of material. Within those disks, dust clumps into rock, rock into planet, planet into sky. The interstellar cloud becomes a solar system. The cycle begins again. We drift now from the nursery into a thinner region, a place shaped not by future stars but by ancient deaths. Ahead, the magnetic field twists abruptly, a shock front, the edge of a supernova remnant. Here, a star exploded long ago, and its ghost still stirs the medium. We feel it in the pattern of motion, in the pressure gradient, in the slight rise of particle density. The aftermath of stellar death has shaped this corner of the galaxy's breath. This, too, is weather. It is not about thunder or clouds. It is about energy, motion, and transformation. At scales we cannot hold, across times we cannot grasp. We breathe softly here. The dark is not empty. The void is not still. Everything moves, even between stars. We continue through the dark, not toward a destination, but alongside something deeper, time itself. Weather in space is not just about movement, it is about memory. We drift through deep time now, not years, not centuries, but billions of years. Here, space weather is a sculptor of galaxies. In the earliest days of the universe, clouds of hydrogen formed under the pull of gravity. They swirled slowly, imperceptibly. Nothing rushed, nothing flared. But the patterns were already there, motion waiting to become light. And then it began. The first stars ignited. Giants, hot and brief. They lived fast, burning through their fuel in only millions of years, and when they died, they did not fade, they exploded. Supernovae. We drift near one now, not the star itself. It is long gone, but its ghost remains, a thin, expanding shell of gas, still rippling outward after tens of thousands of years. The explosion sent shock waves through space, compressing nearby clouds, stirring the interstellar medium. Each supernova reshaped the fabric of its surroundings. It spread heavier elements, iron, oxygen, carbon, flung into the cosmos like seeds. These explosions filled space not only with debris, but with pressure, motion, turbulence. This was weather made of death, but it created everything. We hover now beside a remnant still glowing in X-rays. The gas within is hot, millions of degrees, but so diffuse it cannot warm your hand. It glows only for those with eyes that see energy, and we do. Space weather in deep time is made of this. Shockwaves from supernovae, galactic winds stirred by the births and deaths of stars, magnetic fields stretched across entire arms of galaxies. It is slow, relentless, vast. We drift farther now, across the plane of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. Here, stars are born in spiral arms, where gas is denser, where magnetic fields are stronger. These fields guide cosmic rays, confine hot plasma, and shape how galaxies evolve. We pass near a galactic filament, a river of gas and magnetic flux stretching hundreds of light years. It carries energy from cluster to cluster, like blood vessels through the sky. In the core of our galaxy, near the great black hole Sagittarius A star, things stir more wildly. There, space weather becomes fierce again. Jets of charged particles, fierce X-ray flares, tidal winds from crowded stars. But we don't go there, not yet. We're tracing weather in its oldest forms. We float through regions shaped not by single events, but by hundreds stacked like sediment, layer upon invisible layer of motion, a slow cyclone lasting eons, and we begin to feel it. Space weather is not only radiation and wind, it is architecture. Building the conditions from which everything else flows, it decides which clouds collapse, which stars are born, which atmospheres survive. The physics is precise, the feeling is poetic. You're inside an orchestra of invisible movement, tuned across billions of years. Close your eyes. Listen not for sound, but for time. This weather has no season. It simply is. We are farther now than sunlight travels in a day or a year. We drift not just through distance, but through structure. Invisible, immense, and slow. Welcome to the arms of the galaxy. From Earth we see the Milky Way as a pale ribbon in the night sky, but here from the outside it reveals itself as a spiral, immense and flowing. Star clusters, nebulae, and gas clouds wind around a glowing centre, and through all of it, braided unseen through the stars, runs a vast and delicate web, the galactic magnetic field. It is faint, far fainter than Earth's own, but it stretches across thousands of light years. It is not a shield like a planet's. It is a scaffolding, a guide, a whisper running through everything. We drift along one of these galactic field lines now, not because we can see it, but because the dust around it aligns with its presence. Astronomers map it by light, by polarization, but we follow its gentle pull. The field curves slowly, tracing the spiral arms, shaping the motions of charged particles. It resists compression, it guides plasma, it holds structure where chaos might have ruled. Cosmic rays born from supernova don't wander freely. They follow these lines, snaking along the magnetic web like dancers moving along thread. The galaxy's field tames them, redirects them, slows their spread. These magnetic lines are not random. They form loops, arches, even giant bubbles, remnants of long-past outbursts from black holes or waves of star formation. We drift toward one now, a radio loop large enough to encircle dozens of constellations. It hums softly in radio waves, not sound, but a signal that echoes through space. These loops are thought to be shells, ancient scars from titanic magnetic storms. Even at this scale, there is weather. Gas flows through these fields. Pressure builds and releases. Magnetic tension coils and snaps. Regions of hot gas are trapped, forming bubbles hundreds of light years wide. Other regions collapse, forming stars along the curves. Magnetic reconnection happens even here. Vast events where lines of force reconfigure, releasing energy into the interstellar medium. Quiet storms in the galactic dark. This is not weather in the way we live it. This is weather as architecture, as motion embedded in the structure of space itself. We drift through a quieter region now where the field softens, stars are fewer, the dust is thinner, but the field still lingers, like an echo from the galaxy's heart. It is not strong enough to stop a comet, nor to shape a single day, but across billions of years it guides the evolution of entire star systems. It decides where clouds compress, where winds flow, where galaxies breathe. You're not just floating through space, you're inside a vast, slow river made not of water, but of influence. Even gravity, even starlight must yield to its quiet persistence. Now breathe. Let the curve of the spiral arms hold you. Let the field's ancient loop carry you farther, toward one final boundary, where gravity becomes storm, where light bends, where weather grows strange. A black hole awaits. We drift now towards something darker, not just in colour, but in meaning. A place where gravity folds the sky, where even light slows and curves. A black hole. We are not falling in, not yet. We float carefully near the edge, the event horizon, the silent boundary beyond which nothing returns. But even here, just outside, space is alive. There is weather here too. We hover near a stellar mass black hole, formed from the collapse of a giant star. Its mass is concentrated in a single invisible point, but around it there is motion, an accretion disk, hot, bright, chaotic. Gas spirals inward at incredible speeds, heating as it falls, glowing with X-rays and ultraviolet light. We see it whirl like a cosmic whirlpool, white hot and unstoppable. This disk is weather, not in air, not in rain, but in pressure, temperature, magnetism, and light. The magnetic fields twist here, violently. They thread through the disk, pulled tight by rotation, coiled like springs. Sometimes they reconnect, snapping and releasing energy in enormous flares. We drift through one now, no sound. But everything around us shifts. The particles brighten, the light warps, the flare expands like a pulse in the dark. These magnetic flares can launch relativistic jets, narrow beams of matter hurled away from the poles at nearly the speed of light. They extend for thousands of light years, shaping entire regions of space. They are the loudest silence in the cosmos. Not all black holes are alone. Some live at the centres of galaxies, supermassive black holes, millions or billions of times heavier than the sun. We drift toward one now, not close, but close enough to feel its influence. Around it swirls a torus of dust and plasma, stirred by gravity, friction, and magnetic storms. The field lines knot and burn, just like around the smaller holes, but here the scale is titanic. Galaxies form stars, but their central black holes regulate them. The outflows from accretion disks and jets stir galactic gas, heat it, prevent it from collapsing too quickly. In this way, black holes control the rhythm of starbirth, with weather. This is gravitational weather. Field lines flare, disks thicken, outflows shift. Sometimes the black hole feeds, sometimes it sleeps, but always it shapes. We hover beside a small pocket of turbulence in the disk. Plasma spirals chaotically, magnetic fields surge, then quiet. The particles drift again. The flare fades. The jet tightens. We drift back now, away from the horizon. Not pulled in, not this time, but changed. The weather here is not made of air. It is made of curvature, of time stretched and space compressed, a storm of gravity. And now, beyond even this, a new sky awaits, where storms end, where stillness begins. We are nearing the end of the journey. One last breath, one last drift, toward the silence after storms. Now we drift where even the storms grow silent, beyond the flares of black holes, beyond the plasma tides and magnetic webs. We are entering a place where motion softens, not because there is nothing left, but because everything has slowed. The sky beyond skies. We float now through the intergalactic medium, the space between galaxies. It is emptier than anything we've known. No planets, no stars, just a whisper of hydrogen, a few lonely photons, magnetic fields stretched thin across voids. Yet even here, there is weather. Not storms in the traditional sense, but the afterglow of everything that came before. We move alongside a gentle current of gas drifting between clusters. It flows not with haste, but with the weight of time. Leftovers from galaxies long dissolved. Heat from collisions that happened billions of years ago still lingers here. A quiet temperature across a darkness vast beyond comprehension. Instruments would call this gas warm-hot intergalactic medium, WHIM, but we do not name it here. We only feel it. It moves, slowly. It carries echoes of supernovae. It contains the elements of life, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, scattered across the universe like dust on a windowsill. We pass through it like thought moving through dream. Galaxies twinkle in the distance like islands on a vast black ocean. Some spiral, some scatter, some have collided, leaving trails of stars behind. The space between them is not empty. It is breathing. Magnetic fields still flow here, faint and ancient. Cosmic rays still move, tracing paths like memories across the dark. Even here, the universe is not still. It is just resting. We drift along one final current, a thread of gas stretching between two clusters. Gravity has drawn it into shape. It has no edge, no colour, but it holds the seeds of new galaxies, drifting toward each other across millions of light years. Eventually, perhaps, they will collide. Shock waves will stir, fields will twist, new stars will form, but not tonight. Tonight, we are here, at the quiet edge, the boundary where weather ends and stillness begins. We turn one last time and look behind us. We have followed winds without air, seen storms from the sun, watched light paint the sky, felt the loss of atmospheres, touched the breath of stars long gone, heard in silence the hum of black holes, and now we rest. There is no need to go farther, no need to return, only breathe, slow, even, inhale, with the memory of auroras, exhale, with the drift of dust. You are held now in the space between all storms. The universe still moves, but it does not rush you. Let go of time, let go of form. There is only quiet and motion and sleep, and now we let it all go. The stars, the wind, the storms, the flares and fields, the drifting dust, the breath of comets, the hush of Mars. Everything slows. You're no longer drifting through space. You are space. You're the gentle curve of a magnetic line bending through a nebula. You're the patient spiral of a galaxy, turning without end. You're the warmth of a sunbeam that never reaches a planet but travels on, glowing softly into the dark. Let your thoughts scatter now, like grains of interstellar dust. Let them drift through old light, across fields of sleep, toward nothing you must hold. There is no gravity here, only softness, only the calm that comes after understanding, not as fact, but as feeling. The universe is not in a rush, and neither are you. Every breath you take now is a comet's arc, slow, glowing, purposeful. Every exhale a solar wind slipping through time. You're not far from home. You are home. Here, in the silence after storms. Here, in the quiet weather of sleep. Let go. Let it all dissolve. Not into emptiness, but into stillness. A stillness full of stars. A stillness that carries you, gently now, toward the long rest, toward the hush, toward the drift.